Welcome back to the I Am Passionate podcast. I hope you all are enjoying your 2026. It's your host, Jaren Smith, and I just want you to know that this is kind of a special edition of the I Am Passionate podcast because number one, it's Friday. There was no Thursday night football in the NFL yesterday. And second, it's been a crazy regular season, as we all know.
To say the least.
And give a warm welcome to my big brother to help me join in on this week's craziness. How you doing, big bro?
I'm doing good today, man. I'm ready for the last week, ready to see what shapes up going into the playoffs, man. I'm ready for it.
It is only fitting because this episode will close off talking about AKA the Ravens and Steelers. But to talk a little bit about last week. Last week in my predictions, I went 9-7 with my wins coming from the Cowboys, the Broncos, the Texans, the Ravens, the Patriots, the Jaguars, the Saints, Seattle, and the Bengals, with my losses coming from the Bears, the Rams, the surprising one, the Bills, the Raiders, the Steelers, the other surprising one, the Bucks and the Lions. So pretty much after this episode, because I believe there's 255 regular season games. Um, Obviously I'm gonna go back and do the math just to make sure my total adds up. And also previously I had you back in week 10, which
Yeah,
that week you were 10-4.
that was.
So you had a better week than me that week because I believe I was 9-5.
Hey,
Um, so I'm gonna tell you what I thought the best five games were in week 17, and you let me know how you feel about
y'all should listen to me. All right, what's up?
them. So, best game of last week, I thought was the Bears versus 49ers. I think the Bears showed offensively that they can compete against anybody. They've been
Yeah,
showing that a lot all season.
100%. Yeah, that game was just a complete shootout. But give the fans what they wanted. I think people were expecting a high scoring game for the most part, and they delivered on that. So I think it was definitely game of the week, potential game of the year. But there's a lot of potential game of the year
Yeah,
games
there's a
this
lot.
season. So
Next, I have the Ravens versus Packers simply for the reason that if the Ravens had played like they did from an offensive standpoint, like they did last week for a majority of this season, they would not be in the situation that they're in right now. They would not.
they would have already clinched the AFC North.
They would have maybe about, we'll say, two or three other wins under their belt. I'm just saying that minimum.
Yeah,
Um,
minimum.
Week three, I'm gonna say the Saints versus the Titans. On this podcast, Tyler Shuck, I had talked about all season how I don't trust the Saints quarterback room, and he's been balling as of late. Cam Ward has been balling too.
Yeah,
So it's a good, matchup against rookies. I think that was, a great game. Um, the fourth game, I said the Falcons versus the Rams. The Falcons, they had a 21-point lead at half. And the Rams, they came storming back. And a lot of fans, online, they were upset with, the Puka Nakua's amazing effort was ruled incomplete.
it was a ridiculous effort, but I indeed agree that it was not a catch.
Yeah, because as he was falling to the ground, like
That kind of came
he had
out.
the first two elements, and how his arm was right here, it just started, like moving. Like if he
In
survived the ground, then that would have been a catch. Like
in
basically, he
backyard
didn't survive.
in backyard football, that's a catch all day.
Oh, for sure.
In NFL and NFL rules, unfortunately, it's not a catch, but like I said, a spectacular effort because that was the way it just stuck to his hand. I mean, it just stuck to his hand.
Agreed. And then the final, top five, of my top five for week 17, I had the Texans versus Chargers. The Texans, they were 0-3 at one point, and I'm sure you've seen all the stats. The teams who basically start 0-2, 0-3, they don't tend to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And hey, their defense, they're legit. I said it a few weeks ago. I thought they had the best defense in the NFL, and right now it's still trending in that direction. The Chargers, I think they'll be okay. I think, they also just need to get a little healthy because, Justin Herbert's still dealing with that hand. But I think they'll be okay personally.
Yeah, I think the Chargers has just been plagued with injuries this season. Um, Not that that's an excuse. I think other teams have been plagued with injuries as well, and are still some are doing great, some are not doing so hot. But it's just kind of the way the dice rolls at the end of the day. I think the Chargers will have a bounce back. We'll see what they end up doing in the playoffs for sure and everything. But I think that they'll end up having a bounce back year next year and be if they can stay fully healthy.
I get it. I get it. So, kind of talking more about week 18, basically, the number four seed in the NFC and AFC are up for grabs still, while other teams they can slightly shift. Um, so my question for you before we get into these Week 18 games, do you think certain teams will essentially lose on purpose to get a better playoff matchup? Now, like for example, the Bears are the number two seed in the NFC. If
Mhm.
they were to fall to the number three seed, it's very likely that they're going to have to play somebody like the Rams. Yeah, so or if they win week 18 against the Lions, they're likely gonna have to play the Packers again. So like if you're the Bears, do you purposely tank or do you win? Because if anything, I would rather play Green Bay a third time. And I get it, it's hard to beat, a division opponent a third time.
Yeah.
But I don't know if they can handle the Rams, man. For all that I think it would kind of be a repeat of their against the 49ers.
Yeah. I think I don't know if any team's going to purposely lose. However, I will say that maybe some teams elect not to start their starters, not to play their starters, and maybe the hopes that they don't capture the win from that regard. But specifically with Ben Johnson and the Bears, I think that their goal is to go out there and win. I don't think that they're going to try and lose or give a game on purpose just to get better position in the playoffs as far as maybe not necessarily seeding, but opponent. Um, I won't put it past all the teams. I won't put it past all the teams. However, I do think that it's going to be a question whether or not some teams play their starters, whether teams rest their starters. Like for example, the Rams, they're locked in. I wouldn't play my starters if I were them. I'd give Matt Stafford, I'd give Nakua, I'd give Devontae. Obviously, he's out already another week to get rested up and healthy. Um, so I think it depends on each team, but I do think that most of the teams are going to be going out there gunning to win, or they're going to be sitting their starters.
Uh, at least, to build off of you mentioned in the Rams, I believe he said this Monday night after they lost to the Falcons that they're playing their starters in week
So
18.
that
Sean McVay said that. Just because the NFC, like, there's so much potential movement
going on.
that
Yeah,
could be had. So them playing their starters, it could help them potentially host a home playoff game.
yeah. I
So
was going to say, I think that I was going to. This is a follow-up question to your question, but I don't know if we're in unprecedented times. Has there ever been a year where both the AFC and the NFC have not been clinched yet, coming into Week 18?
as in
Uh,
like the number one seed.
yeah, as the number one seed for both conferences.
Off the top of my mind, I can't remember the exact year to this. I want to say this was 2019, where Seattle and the 49ers, similar situation to this year, played on Sunday Night Football, and the 49ers ended up winning that game because they tackled the Seahawks player at the 1 yard line, and the clock ran out. That's just for the NFC.
Yeah,
And I understand 2019 the Ravens had, the first seed, because they went on that crazy win streak.
yeah,
But I'd have to do a little bit more research on that because also thinking back even just in the 2020s, for the most part, at least number one seeds get locked up pretty quickly. But to your point, it's taken 18 weeks and it's still not decided. There's
yeah.
like then the AFC, the Patriots, the Broncos, the Jaguars, they all have their own specific path to the one seed.
Yep.
Now, for the NFC, it's a little less likely for like the Bears, they
Mhm.
can't get it.
Yeah.
But basically the NFC West, the Seattle, the 49ers, the Rams. Actually, I don't think the Rams because they lost, but Seattle and the 49ers.
Mhm.
Those two teams can still get the number one seed
Yeah.
in the NFC.
Yeah.
So
So
it's just
it'll be
crazy.
interesting. There's a lot up for grabs this year when it comes to week 18. And I think that it's a fitting way to end the season, just as chaotic as the entire season was, So it's fitting for it to end like this. But we're in for a good week. We're in for a good week.
I agree. And that's a great segue to go into Saturday's games. We've got two games on Saturday, which one of them basically decides the number one seed, but we're going to start with the NFC South between the Panthers and the Bucks. And now hear me out when I say this. This game kind of is almost just entirely set up against the Buccaneers because even if the Buccaneers win this game, if the Falcons beat the Saints on Sunday, the Panthers still win the division.
Yeah.
So it's almost like if the
It
Bucks win, they would need everything to go in their favor. They would have like a very low chance of making the playoffs still. But what are your thoughts on this matchup? Who do you think is going to come out on top in this game?
Yeah, the odds are definitely not in the Bucks' favor at all when it comes to trying to get this last playoff spot. And I'm gonna go with the Panthers, actually. I'm gonna take the Panthers in this game. I think, they beat them a few weeks ago. I will say that uh, it's been a very disappointing second half of the season for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I mean, it was seven,
Horrible.
8, 9 weeks ago when they were like 7-1 or so. They were something. They were
They started like 5-1, I believe.
5-1. Yeah, they were something like that. And Baker Mayfield was in MVP conversations. Everybody thought that their offense was going to be a powerhouse with all the receivers they had, and
I jumped
yeah,
the gun, but
yeah, they
it
they
wasn't as bad as me with the Saints last year.
man, they completely dropped the ball this year going into the second half of the season, almost kind of like Bears-esque last year. Um, with just the amount of, I mean, at one point they had lost 5 of their last 6.
hmm
I'm going to take the Panthers. They've been on a roll. They've been able to kind of edge out games that maybe you feel like they shouldn't be edging out. I think it'll be a close one. I think it'll go down to the wire, probably go down in the fourth quarter. But I'm going to take the Panthers win this one in the safe bet.
Yeah, I'm kind of right there with you. I'm gonna take the Panthers to get this one 24-23. I think the Buccaneers have the better roster, but I think the Panthers, I think they found a formula earlier this year, talking, they're gonna get the, run game going. Bryce Young has been playing good football, arguably the best of his career. And, Rico Dowdle, I think he's had 1,000 yards every season of his career.
Uh,
And, Chuba Hubbard, they got a good running back room,
yeah,
and their defense, they just play great football. And in
yeah,
the first half against Seattle last week, they were in that game. I
they
get in
were
the second half, things started to slip away, but I think the
undone.
Panthers can play against anybody, at least make it competitive. I don't really see them as a team to get blown out. Like if they get blown out, it's either one or two things. A, someone like Bryce Young would get hurt, knock on wood, or B, just everything goes wrong, in terms of like people fumbling, the Bucks defense plays well. But yeah, we both have the Panthers for this one. Moving on to the potential who gets the first seed between Seattle and the 49ers. I think Seattle's going to get this one simply just because we kind of saw this against the Bears. The 49ers, they do not have a great pass rush, mostly because they're a very banged up team,
Yeah.
very banged up. And I think the 49ers, they might have that hunger to want it more because, last Sunday night, Fred Warner talked about is there's a chance he comes back for the NFC Championship game.
Hmm.
And for them to get, the number one seed, that will definitely help his chances to be able to come back.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're going to get the number one seed because I don't think they're going to get pressure on Sam Darnold consistently in this game. Because when they first played earlier in the year, their defense was at the 49ers defense was at full strength.
Yep.
Now they're still good, but they're not they don't have, Nick Bosa, they don't have Fred Warner, which, two key pieces that you have to look out for
Hmm.
every play.
Yeah. Man, this one's hard. This one's a hard pick. This one could literally go either way, I feel like. I do like your point on 49ers not being able to generate any pass rush. I think that's going to become huge in this game. It's been shown that when Darnold is pressured, he's able to he potentially can give the ball away.
Yeah, he might give you
Which
one or
is
two.
Yeah, he can give you 1 or 2 if you but the 49ers can't pressure quarterbacks. So I think that does give Seattle the favor in this matchup. Although Brock Purdy has been balling out, man. He's been balling. Um, I'm gonna take the 49ers in this one. By a surprise, I'm gonna take the 49ers. I think that they find a way to get it done. It's in San Fran.
Yeah, they're the home team.
Yeah, I think that Brock Purdy in this offense, for whatever reason, all the odds stacked against them have found a way to be a top 5 offense in this league, without a primary receiver. And without their offensive weapons being healthy this season consistently at all, I think that they find a way to get it done. I'm going to take the 49ers on this one, but it's going to be a close one.
Yeah, this is where we differ because we usually kind of have the same opinion early, and so I'm glad there's a natural, like difference of opinion between us. I'm gonna take Seattle to win this 30-27, but to your point about the 49ers, if the 49ers win this game, they've had the most impressive season because, like you mentioned, a lot of their weapons have been gone, a lot of their defensive players are out, and they're still in the thick of things.
So that's a conversation that I want to bring up later at the end. I just wanted the coach of the year prospects. People are talking about who's up for coach of the year, and I don't know if there's been a year where there's been more a higher quantity of deserving coaches for the award than this
There's
year.
easily three head coaches who could get it.
You could say easily five, but yes, there's a lot of head coaches who could potentially win it. Um, but moving on, I know you want to go to the Colts versus Texans
Mhm.
for Sunday night. I'm gonna go Texans. I think this one's a little bit easier. Farewell to Philip Rivers as he enters retirement again. I don't really understand the point. I mean, I get that they, weren't able to capture a win, and that pretty much just ended their playoff hopes and whatnot. Um, they're who I don't know who the quarterback they're rolling with this upcoming Sunday. Is he a
Oh,
rookie?
Riley Leonard. He was Notre Dame's quarterback when they played
Okay.
Ohio State in the national championship.
I think that you should have just gave him the starts before this.
I agree.
I think you should just give him the steps before this. I get it that there's a playoff, a line on the hopes, but uh, rookie quarterback, see what you got in him, give him the experience, have faith in him. You drafted him for a reason. But I'm gonna take the Texans. Defense is just too OD. It's too overpowered. I don't really see the Colts being able to overcome that, and all the injuries that they've kind of encountered through the later half of the season.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that I would have given him the chance. Like, I get it. The Colts last few games, they were in the ringer in terms of great defenses, but I would have wanted Philip Rivers to play against the Texans, like only simply just because he had played these last few games. And like I think that I pray that Riley Leonard does not have, a game like the Vikings quarterback did when they played against Seattle, where he threw like four picks.
Hmm.
Now, I think that Riley Leonard, based off of what he was able to do in college, he was a little bit more of a mobile quarterback. So, like, I believe he's built height-wise similar to Cam Newton. He's a tall guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5".
Okay.
I think the weight is, that's where the difference is. But, those quarterback powers, those are going to be at play. But yeah, I'm going to take the Texans to win, in the early slate of games, 31-10. Let's talk about the Browns versus Bengals, aka the Ohio Bowl. A lot of Ohio fans are upset because of, I'm not even going to mention it because Kevin's going to be in the comments saying, don't you say his name, Jaren. But
Man,
what
rip
do
to
you think
Ohio
about
State. I'll just say it. Rip to Ohio State. I'll say it.
what do you think about the Browns versus is Myles Garrett going to get the record?
I think he does. I think he does. I mean, the Bengals offensive line is historically trash. I mean, we've known that for a while. Look at Joe Burrow and all his injuries. It's been a conversation throughout the last few years. I think this is, other than the Steelers last week, I think that this is his best chance at getting and breaking the record. Uh, I don't think that you would hope, if I was him, you would hope to be against any other team other than in-house rivalry, and their offensive line is trash. Um, and Joe Burrow already came out and has said that he's not going to try and avoid it, slightly how people think Aaron Rodgers did last week. So I'm going to go Bengals. I think it'll be close though. I do think it'll be close.
Their week one matchup was pretty close, surprisingly. I think the Bengals won that by like less than like a field goal or something, like 17 to like 16 or something.
Yeah, I think it'll be like a one-score game.
This is where we differ a little bit. I have the Bengals winning, but I think they're going to win by two touchdowns. I think, the Browns de defense is going to do everything in their power to keep the game, close. They're going to have those moments where you think like if the offense can, push the ball down the field, I think that, they're going to give them every chance that you could ask for, and they're going to come up short. Um, I think that Kevin Stefanski, we might be seeing at basically 3 p.m., 4 p.m., on Sunday that Kevin Stefanski's out of a job.
Yeah.
So, and I think it's going to be because Myles Garrett's going to set the record, and then you're going to say, like, how can you have a generational athlete set the record, and then, you're 4-13 or four or whatever. But
You
give,
know,
give me the Bengals.
I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about this as you're speaking, and I'm processing it, and I think I'm actually going to change my pick to the Browns. I think I'm going to change my pick to the Browns for a few reasons. Um, Bengals defense trash. I think everybody knows that. Anybody can put points up. I think Sanders is going to go out there, be holding his wrist up, a completion percentage beyond 20 yards air is outstanding for him. I think he'll find a way to beat them deep, make a few plays. I think he'll come up with the win. The Bengals defense is trash, and the Browns defense is really, really good. I think that they'll be able to. I mean, the Bengals offense has not really been thriving lately. They've had some hiccups, they've had injuries, they've had, a bunch of different problems throughout the year. I think that they'll end up just not being able to get it done, and I think that the Browns will edge this one out. I do think it'll still might be a close game, but and I'm actually thinking that might be a high scoring game as well. Excuse me.
Okay, okay.
I think it'll be double digit points for both teams.
Okay, okay, okay. Moving on to the Saints versus Falcons. We already kind of was talking about how the Falcons can ruin things
Yeah.
for the NFC South. What do you think is going to go on in this game? Do you think that this game will have an impact to who makes the playoffs out of the NFC South?
I do. I do. This division is always every year. It's
Ever
always
since 2020
somebody
when the
new.
Bucks won the Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's always somebody new. It's always close. It's always teams ruining and upsetting each other and ruining playoff standings for each other. I think the Falcons will play spoiler. The Saints have been on a heater lately. I think that
Four in a row. Tyler Shuck has been balling.
the Falcons will come and extinguish that. Falcons defense has been fairly good, inconsistent but fairly good. Um, I think that they'll be able to generate the pass rush. And I just see the Falcons edging this one out. I don't really have any rhyme or reason to it. But
Okay.
I think it'll be
Okay.
a close game.
See, I kind of got the Saints in this one. My thing is, I wonder how Kirk Cousins is going to show up.
Yeah,
Or I wonder if the offense is going to, give Bijan the ball. Because when you give
yeah,
Bijan the ball, great things tend to happen.
yeah.
And I feel like they're not going to do that like they should. So that is kind of why I'm picking the Saints. I feel like the Saints, they're going to play a cleaner brand of football.
Mhm.
And I think Tyler Shuck is going to outduel Kirk Cousins. I feel like the Falcons are going to be forced to pass, and this might be like a desperation game for the Falcons head coach to keep his job. And that's why in if this is a true desperation game, you would think that they're going to run the ball 30 plus times. But I don't think they're going to do that. And that I feel like is what's going to get Raheem Morris fired. Um, I think the Saints are going to win this one 27-17. For the Packers versus Vikings, a big thing that's been talked about is Malik Willis. He's balled out when he's played for the Packers when his number was called, for the past 2 years. My question for you, do you think Malik Willis is a starting caliber quarterback? And if so, how many teams do you think that he could go to and let's just say put up, good numbers?
Um, One, do I think Malik Willis is a starting quarterback potential or skill set? Right now, I think no. And it's not because of his play, it's not because of anything. I want to give credit to Matt LaFleur. I want to give credit to the system, the structure that he's in. I think that that has a big part of it. I'm not saying that Malik Willis can't go anywhere else and have success. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think it's very similar to where Sam Darnold was last year, where you got Kevin O'Connell, known to be a great offensive coordinator, quarterback guru, all those types of things. Sam Darnold was in a great system and it worked out for him. When he left, people were skeptical. People were wondering if uh, they were going to be able to replicate that same production for Sam Darnold in a new system. Luckily, Seahawks head coach, obviously great coordinator, obviously great at getting that system together, and Sam Darnold has flourished. I think it's going to be whether or not Malik Willis does get into a system that is in his benefit. Who's going to be coaching him, things like that, and I think that that'll really be the huge determinant as to whether he's a successful quarterback or not going forward. Um, it'll be interesting to see where he ends up, though. I do think that it'll be interesting to see where he ends up. I know people are saying that the Steelers are in play for a quarterback with Aaron Rodgers' departure, so it'll be interesting to see what we do going in next year. And there's obviously a few other teams, handful of teams that need quarterbacks. I don't want him going to a place like the Jets, though. I don't even think the Steelers would be a good place for him, to be honest with you. I think he needs
They would
a
need a
change.
different offensive coordinator, but I
Yeah,
do feel like Arthur Smith as a coordinator, I think he would go to, Malik Willis' strengths a bit more than
yeah.
expected because going from Aaron Rodgers to Malik Willis, you've got to call a completely different set of plays.
Yeah, I agree. So it'll be interesting. I do root for him. I do hope him the best. I'm not super confident that we'll be able to see him in a system that really shows off all his skill sets. But
Sure.
we might have a few quarterbacks on the move this offseason too. So we don't even really know. Like Kyler Murray's on the docket list. JJ McCarthy is up in the air still as to what their plan is with that. Obviously, you have the Falcons with Penix and Kirk and all those kind of things. Penix coming back from injuries. You had the Jets. So, and then also, let's not forget about Joe Burrow and the question in the air with that. So I think it'll be interesting this offseason going in with the whole quarterback play.
Fair. I think there's only one because like I agreed with your point that like I feel like if he went somewhere else, he would need to have the right coaching. And now this is a big if. If the Miami head coach keeps his job,
Mm.
I could see him going to Miami and running that offense well.
That's a good.
If,
That's good. That's good. I like that. Yeah.
but if he does not keep his job, but he still goes to Miami, I'm not sure they'd be able to keep that same success. So long story short, wherever Mike McDaniel, that's his name.
Two is another one. Yeah,
Um,
up in the air.
if Mike McDaniel, has his job, well, no matter if it's in Miami or another team, I think if he goes to there and under, that system, I think that'll be huge. But for this game, I think the Packers are going to get the win. I think that, they're gonna, get out to an earlier lead and then they're just gonna run the football. I think if it's Jordan Love or Malik Willis at quarterback, I don't think it's gonna make that big of a difference. I
Yeah.
think the key is here, you want to get out of this game healthy. So like if you have a big enough lead, then just rely on the ground game. You don't want to mess around here because no
Yeah.
matter who you end up facing in the playoffs, because the Packers are a playoff team, you want all your difference makers. You want everybody to stay healthy. But all
Yeah.
your difference makers to, get out of this game in one piece and then, start game planning for your next matchup.
Has it been stated that the Packers are they're playing their starters?
Not that I have seen,
Yeah.
which is why that this game could end up going in the Vikings' favor.
Yeah.
But I feel like the Packers are kind of a weird team that even with their backups and the Vikings being inconsistent this year on the offensive end, that this game could still go in the pack. Plus,
I
if it's Malik, unless they play, I think it was Clayton Tune that got in the game against Baltimore for like 2 plays. Unless it's him, I can still see the Packers offense putting up 30 points, even if it's led by their backups.
No, yeah, I agree with that. I agree with that. I think that the Packers will ultimately end up taking this game in the division game. It'll probably be one score game, maybe like 10-point game. Uh Yeah, I see the Packers wanting to win this and carry in some type of momentum going into the playoffs, seeing how the last few weeks, last four weeks or so has been a little bit of a struggle for them. So I think wanting to get a win under the belt, take it into the playoffs, and then see where the playoffs can lead, is kind of going to be important for them, especially with Jordan Love being hurt. I think it would be smart for them to play him if he's obviously healthy enough to play and cleared for concussion protocol. Um, but it'll be interesting matchup for them as well.
Fair, 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 fair. So for the next game, which It's the Titans versus the Jaguars. The big posing question. Do you think everything will go right for the Jags to get the number one seed? Because they have not done that since the Saxonville. I believe they're the number one seed in that playoffs. And that was what, 2017? 20, no, it was 2018, 2018, 2018.
I actually I don't know what needs to happen for them to get the one seed. The Broncos have to lose,
I believe the Broncos and
and the
Patriots would
Patriots have
have
to
to
lose.
lose, but specifically the Jaguars have the tiebreaker over the Broncos. They would need the Patriots to
That's right.
lose,
They need the
and
Patriots.
I believe they would need the Broncos to lose, and I think they'd have to win. But
Um,
um, they would need a lot.
I think right now the Patriots probably have the best chance at landing the one seed. The Jags, I mean, I think they're going to win this matchup against the Titans. I don't even think it'll be close. I think they're going to blow them out. Um, it'll be crazy to see. I really have no idea how the dice are going to land for this number one seed in either conference, but it'll be interesting to see how it all shapes out. I think if I had to put my money on it, the Pats would end up with the number one seed though.
Fair enough, fair enough. Yeah, I kind of think it's gonna be something similar. Um, I think if the Broncos, take care of business and do what they have to do, I think they can, cement it. But I think it's gonna be tough. For the Titans, Cam Ward, a lot of people have basically been saying that, this year he's like Will Levis had did the same thing as Cam Ward did. But I think Cam Ward showed those flashes of being, a franchise quarterback more so than Will Levis. So I think the Titans, they're going to come out strong, but I don't, because like a couple weeks ago when they played the Jaguars, because I just looked it up just to fact check, the Jaguars won the game 25-3. It was pretty much Jaguars from start to finish.
Mhm.
But I think, the Titans, I think they're going to put up a little bit more fight than they did in their previous game. But I think the Jaguars are going to win this one 34-17. And we're going to talk about next first, is 2026 the Cowboys year? Like, are they going to start 2026 1-0? They play the Giants, to close out the regular season. And last time when these teams played, Russell Wilson balled out in that game. He threw for like 350 yards.
Mhm.
Dak, also balled out.
Mhm.
What do you think is going to happen in this game? Like, yes, it's a meaningless game. None
Yeah.
of these teams, they're out of the playoff picture. But I got the Cowboys winning this one 27-13. I think there's going to be lower scoring. I don't think they're going to be two shootouts from these teams this year.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think Cowboys take it handedly. Um, just the Cowboys have been on a roll a little bit. I think that they'll put this one together, kind of end the season on a high note. Hopefully, Jerry reaches into his bag of tricks this offseason and gets some stuff for the defense. I think this offense, you got to find a way to get George Pickens back because right now he's a free agent going into next season, and they don't really have the funds as of right now to sign him because they're over the salary cap, as of all Jerry teams are. So, I think it'll be interesting to see if they can get George Pickens under contract and then go from there and see what they can shore up on the defense. But I do think that they start the year out 2026 1-0. Um,
What do you think about the Trayvon Diggs situation? Because,
yeah,
I think that was, from what I read, Trayvon Diggs basically did what he was supposed to, asking team for permission
yeah,
to, stay because they played Washington on Christmas, to
yeah,
stay in that area because he's got family out there. It was denied. And basically he was asking for permission to do, things that, people want to do with their family
yeah,
and just was denied and basically ended up getting cut. And now he's a Packer.
yeah.
So what do you think about that situation?
I think it could have been handled better, more appropriately. I do think it's a little weird that the head coach would deny that. I'm not sure if I'm sure he's been questioned on it. I haven't really seen any content on what his response has been.
Same.
Um, Although I would love to hear what his explanation is because it doesn't add up to me on why he wouldn't be able to be granted time to spend time with his family on Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. Um, Seeing how a lot of players around that time do get approved for that. It's very rare for you to get denied. So I just like to hear the reasoning into why he was denied, and maybe I'm sure there were more. more of a fallout in between that or after that denial as well. But if I was Diggs, I would want to get out of there too. I'm not gonna lie. I'd want to get out of there. And what
He
what
joined Micah, Wisconsin.
I was gonna say, what more could you ask for than to join up with your former best teammate? And then also, what is up with the Cowboys just making erroneous decisions and then falling into the laps of the Packers? I just don't. I don't I don't get it. Um,
I think that stems back to the Aaron Rodgers days because Aaron Rodgers had a couple of crazy wins against the Cowboys as a Packer. Cardinals versus the Rams. I think that this needs to be a get right game for the Rams. Like, I'm not saying that this is technically a must-win game, but I think they need to put everything together. And because I thought they were hitting their stride, and they were going to continue, building upon that. But
mhm.
Matthew Sta- Matthew Stafford basically handed Drake May the MVP last week. He basically did. Um, and so yeah, I think they need to hit their stride because they have a Super Bowl window with Matthew Stafford at least. And when you mentioned earlier about, quarterbacks, a lot of people are saying the Rams should trade for Joe Burrow because Matthew Stafford's getting older, which would be valid because if they trade for Joe Burrow, they're still Super Bowl contenders. They could win the Super Bowl this year, Stafford retires, get Joe Burrow, they're still contenders.
That would be insane if that happened for one.
LA teams always find a way to take star players from people.
No, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Follow up on a few things you said there. I still think Matthew Stafford should be MVP. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I do. I do. 42 touchdowns, 8 picks, 4,500 yards passing. I understand that they flopped the last few games. Haven't had Devontae Adams. I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but I do think you're right in the fact that this is a get right game for them. I think that they need this game in order to kind of get into a position to make a run in the playoffs. I think before the last 2, 3 weeks, they were probably the favorites. I think now people are starting to question them a little bit just because of the prior performances.
See, the
I do think that they'll blow the Cardinals out. The Cardinals just don't have anything to offer. I'm sorry. They're 3 wins. They back up down to their backup quarterbacks. I just don't see any hope or faith for the Cardinals. I think that they'll easily get this win, regardless of if the starters play or not, to be honest with you. But I do think you're right, and this is a get right game for the Rams. They got to get some type of momentum going into the playoffs, especially just because it's such a tight knit race in the NFC. You could have any week is going to be a tough week when you're in the NFC. You got potentially the Bears, the Eagles, you got the Seahawks, you got the 49ers. It's just tough. So I think they need to get some momentum going. And hopefully Devontae can get healthy enough to show up in the playoffs and be good enough to actually make an impact.
Now, hear me out when I say, this, because I do think Matthew Stafford has played well enough this season to get the MVP award. But I think what people are going to say that's going to hold, Matthew Stafford's basically arguably his best season against him is similar to last season with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. Matthew Stafford, his whole team, insane, specifically in the offense. Devontae Adams basically had the most wide receiving touchdowns in the NFL at one point. Puka Nacua at one point this year was on pace to basically have the best wide receiving season ever. Kyron Williams is, a good running back. They've got good tight ends. The best offensive play caller in football. The Patriots this season. I get it. They had Josh McDaniel, who's been a proven good offensive coordinator. But receiving threats, I've got Drake May's stats pulled up. He's thrown for 4,200 yards. He's got 30 touchdowns. He got 8 picks. Yes, yeah, your stats, about Matthew Stafford were, on point. So, like, I agree. Matthew Stafford's stats are better. He has a significant number of touchdowns thrown. But I think Drake May is going to get the award because he has done just as much with way less than Matthew Stafford has. And I think that basically, long story short, no matter who gets it, NFL fans are going to be mad because yes, I wanted Lamar Jackson to win the award last year. I believe he had the better season than Josh Allen because when you look at all their stats, side by side, in 2024. But I think that they're going to give it to Drake May because he's doing way more with way less. Um,
Yeah, I think that that's true. I think he's doing way more with less. I don't think there's any debating that. I just go to the schedule, man.
that
What
is true.
what I don't, and that's why I don't believe in the Patriots. Sorry, I'm not trying to be a Patriot hater. I don't
I,
think the Patriots are
this
bad by any mean.
I had been talking bad about the Patriots all year until they basically beat the Ravens.
I I just don't see on their schedule looking from top to bottom other than the Bills win and then they come back later and choke to the Bills. I don't see any game or any defining moments for the New England Patriots this season as far as like, okay, they beat this good team and that is a reason as to why they could be deadly in the playoffs. I don't see it happening with them. And I think it'll be unfair to give Drake May the season award for MVP and then him come in the playoffs and the whole team lays a dud. I think what it is going back to my question that I posed to you earlier that I wanted to talk about. Is this more of a Drake MVP, Drake May MVP type season, or is it a Mike Vrabel Coach of the Year type season? Because I don't think you can do both. I don't think you can give both. I don't think you can say that you came in and Drake May was the MVP and also Mike Vrabel was the head coach of the year. I don't think that you can do both. I think it's one or the other. And I would say that my argument would be that this is a Mike Vrabel coach of the year type performance more than it is Drake May coming out and ripping these teams apart. Because, like I said, they played the Jets twice, they played the Miami Dolphins twice. That's 4 games right there. That's basically just stat padding for the Patriots. So I don't think that it's a fair assessment to say they deserve any MVP type of status when they really haven't beaten anybody. Now, if they go in the playoffs and they go on this amazing run, I will for sure bite my tongue, eat my words. But right now, with how Matthew Stafford has played, what his stats look like, and the teams he's had to play the 49ers twice. He's had to play the Seahawks twice. They had to play the Eagles. Like they've played really, really good football teams, and they still have the record they do, and he's still performing the way they have. Um, I think you're right, though. I think it'll be a toss up, and I think that fans are going to be mad either way. I do have a little bit of bias in that just because I love Matthew Stafford. I'm a Georgia fan, and I want to see him get an MVP. I've been rooting for that man since his rookie year. He came on the field. He came back on the field after tearing his rotator cuff
Against the Browns
down
and still
down
threw a
against the
touchdown.
Browns. Everybody's calling for him to come out again in the game. And he's like, no, screw that, screw that. He's running out like this. Arm needs to be in a sling. Throws
Yeah,
a touchdown pass.
that
Like
was
I
an
believe
iconic moment for sure. Honestly,
exactly. He deserves
that
it.
and that no look pass in the Super Bowl are
And it's
easily the two plays I think of when I think of Matthew Stafford
and
the
that's what I'm
most.
saying. He holds the record for most 5,000 yard passing seasons. Now I think he passed Ty Drew Brees. I'm not sure.
I,
Or
I believe you. I'd have to
4,000.
look into it because I
But
never even thought about that.
I do think that Matthew Stafford is just deserving of it. But like you said, it'll be a toss up at the end of the day, and nobody's gonna be happy no matter what. You can't make everybody happy.
Fair enough.
Uh,
Moving on, we've got the Commanders versus the Eagles. Not much is needed to be said about this game
yeah,
because from what I've seen, the Eagles, not a lot of their starters are going to play. So I don't really think much needs to be said. If anything, to be honest with you, I would rather the Eagles' offensive starters, specifically Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, their receivers, so basically the offensive skill positions, them to play at least the first half, bench the entire offensive line, and then on the defensive end, honestly, don't play a single starter on defense. I'm saying that because I do think the Eagles' defensive backups are good enough to contain Washington this year. And I think you want to keep the Eagles offense, in at least some sort of rhythm because in the past couple of weeks, AJ Brown has been playing better. He
yeah,
has.
yeah.
The Eagles offense has been playing in a little bit. They have not been playing to their full potential because I think they can still, elevate even higher.
Hmm.
But right now, like just using numbers, let's just say 10 out of 10, like they can't be stopped, definitive best offense the last couple of weeks. I feel like they're at like a 6, where they're just playing well, but they're not doing anything like amazing, personally. And for the Commanders, I don't really have much to say about them besides for Jaden Daniels. I hope he puts on 10 to 15 pounds of muscle
Yeah.
because I fear that, if he doesn't, he has to be more of a passer than a runner because he's deadly at both. But he got beat up this year, and if he keeps taking big hits, he quite literally will be the next RG3, which I do not want for him.
Mhm.
I'm just afraid that that'll happen.
Yeah, I think this game is actually going to be important for seeding as well, just with the Eagles in hand, just because I think with the Eagles, especially if from what you've heard, they're stating their starters, it's going to be important to see who they play the first round of the playoffs because like what are they? They're going to be the third seed.
Yeah, they're pretty much going to be locked into the third seed, pretty
Yeah, they'll
much.
be in the third seed. So I mean, they could get
Actually, now that I think about it, I think it also depends on if the Bears lose. If the Eagles win and the Bears lose, the Eagles might move up to number two.
yeah, because I want to see because right now, if let's say for example they draw, like the Eagles draw like the Bears, well, obviously that's not going to happen. They're 2-3, but like if they were to play like the Bears, I don't think that that's a good matchup for the Eagles. If they were to play like the Packers, I think that that would be a good matchup for them. I think the Eagles could match up against the Rams even, to be honest with you, with how they've been playing.
I think they can. We saw it earlier this year.
Yeah.
Even though the Rams were beating the Eagles' butts in the first half, then the Eagles just stepped up in the second half.
Yeah, so I think it'll depend on who the like for example, if the Panthers get in and the Eagles have to play the Panthers, obviously that's not going to happen because they're going to be eighth seed. But I'm just saying, like, I think it's going to depend.
Well, wait, hold on. I think you're slightly misspeaking because if the Panthers get in, they'll be the four seed. So
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah.
long story short, if the let's just say the playoffs happen, let's just say whoever the Eagles play in the wild card, they advance. So if the Eagles and Panthers match up, it would likely be in the divisional round
Yeah,
if
that's
both
true.
teams make it that far.
True. Yeah, I think it'll I think it'll depend, but I think the Eagles will have this game in the
Mhm.
bag, even with their backups, to be honest with you. I think it'll be a low scoring game. Probably like 17-10.
Fair enough, fair enough, fair enough. And yeah, but you did bring up an interesting point that, I wasn't necessarily thinking about seeding because, like if the season ended basically there was no week 18, I believe the Eagles would have to play either the Rams or the 49ers if the season was over, like if there was no week 18.
Yeah, it looks like the 49ers.
Yeah. And which that could be, but if they win and the Bears lose, the Eagles would have to play the Packers.
Well, it
But if I'm the
also,
Eagles, I'd rather play the Packers.
yeah, no, 100%. So it's either going to be the Panthers or the Bucks.
Yeah, but
Um,
I think like we established earlier, I think the Bucks would need a miracle to make it because like they crumbled in the second half of the season. So I'm not a betting man, nor am I advising anybody to bet, but I would say I would bet that the Panthers end up making the playoffs, even if the Panthers lose the football game.
yeah,
Um, Moving on, we have Miami versus the Patriots. I don't anticipate us having much to say about this because, like what we established earlier with that MVP conversation. My question for you is, will Miami have a different head coach for next season? Will he get fired after this game? Reports have been saying that his job is safe, at
yeah,
least.
yeah. I don't think so. I think they'll give him one more year. I think they'll give McDaniels one more year to show something. You had a few years there where they were showing flashes. Obviously, they still have the weather gates out there for them. So they still need to solve that one for sure. But I think you give McDaniels a quarterback of his choosing. When he came in, Tua was there. He didn't choose Tua. I think you give him a quarterback of his choosing under his system and see what he can do. Um, and I think jury's out on Tua, man. I think, and I don't think it's necessarily his fault. Between the injuries, between coming back and having to get hit again and all that kind of stuff, and then your number one wide receiver. Let's be honest here. Tyreek before A-Chain was basically their entire offense. We understand that they had Waddle, and Waddle was a great, I'll eat when Tyreek's not eating type receiver. But with Tyreek going out, changed a lot for them. And I think that you have to give McDaniels an opportunity to at least build. a system around a quarterback of his choosing in order to see what he can do. Now, do I think they're going anywhere next year, even if McDaniels is the head coach? No, I don't. Just because of the roster, and there's too much that needs to change. But for now, I'll say that McDaniel stays, two is out. We'll see what they do next year.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Patriots to win this one 30-3. I don't think it's gonna be close.
Yeah,
Moving on to the Lions versus the Bears. My question for you is, regardless of who wins, because when the Lions and Bears played earlier this year, it was
yeah,
brutal.
yeah.
Do you think the Bears will play better against the Lions this
I
next?
do.
Because the Lions, even though they're not playing for playoffs, they want to beat Ben Johnson, their former offensive coordinator,
Yeah,
and as a divisional opponent. So they're
yeah.
essentially they have the chance to play spoiler, so to speak.
Hmm.
I do think the Bears will play better because I think they're a completely different team than what they are. But I think the Bears still need to, stay humble about it. And because the Lions offense, they still have the pieces to go out there, put up 35 plus easy. They got to contain Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. I
Hmm.
am going to take the Bears to win in a shootout because I believe they're 6-1 in basically like, let's just say crazy games,
Yeah,
so to
game-winning
speak.
situations. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Bears are going to get a late field goal. I think this is going to be the kind of game that they need to have the hope and momentum to get through the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm gonna take the Bears. I think it's gonna be close. I will say though, at the same time, that the Bears still have a lot to prove,
They do.
especially within their division. I mean, let's be real here. They blew the first game of the season to the Vikings. Came back, basically choked against the Detroit. Didn't really seem to be able to do anything. Played the Vikings again. Everybody thought they had it in the bag until, of
It
course,
went
their
down to the
ghosts
wire.
started seeing ghosts and they started going down to the wire again. So there goes two Viking games that you could say were kind of disappointments. Both games were, in a sense. Obviously, Detroit beat them early on. Packers. Okay, Bears play the Packers first game. It was a dud in the first half. Come back, make it a competitive game. Still end up losing that game. Come back the next game. They had a 2% chance to win that game in the fourth quarter. The Bears did.
And they
They
clutched
pretty
up.
much were out of it. Nobody was expecting them to win that game at that point in the time. So I think when you look at all the games they've played within their division, the Bears still have a lot to prove. And I think they're also going to struggle again. I think they're going to struggle in this game as well. I do think they're going to struggle. I think they'll find a way to knot it out and win. But I think next year, and even going into the playoffs, if they have to play the Packers, it's going to be some tight football at NFC North going forward.
I agree. I agree. Moving on, we've got the Chiefs versus the Raiders. Don't really have much to say about, these teams because it's been established that the Chiefs, you know, if anything, here's my overall question. Do you think Travis Kelce is going to retire? Do you
I
think
think he
we'll see him
should.
next year?
I think he should. I think he should retire. I mean, it sucks. You don't want your career to end this way, let alone a season to end this way. But I mean, they have no quarterback next year. Let's just be real. I mean, they have no quarterback next year. And Travis Kelce, who are you? What are you going to be trying to go and prove? You know they're not Super Bowl contenders just because of that reason alone. That Patrick Mahomes won't be in the backfield. You're going to have who? Gardner Minshew throwing to you? Like I just don't really see, and I don't see it happening. I don't see it being realistic. Does he try to play? I wouldn't put it past him. I wouldn't put it past him to try and play even when Mahomes does come back in 2027 or whenever that whenever that will be. But uh I think he should give it a rest. And I think that the Chiefs should kind of just revamp and redesign an offense around Mahomes.
Fair. Yeah, I'm indifferent. I think I think they could, but like who we brought up Malik Willis earlier. If they I don't think he's gonna go to Kansas City, but if they did get, let's just say, interesting quarterback piece for next season, maybe Travis Kelce decides to run it back. But I'm with you. I think Travis Kelce, he's basically a lock for the Hall of Fame. He's
Yeah,
top, I think, three or top five in almost every receptions, touchdowns, yards for a tight end.
yeah,
I think he's going to go down as one of, if anything, he's going to go down as the greatest tight end maybe in history. If Gronk had a longer career, I think if anything, Gronk was a more dominant football player than Travis Kelce, in my opinion. But
yeah,
Travis Kelce was the better receiver.
yeah.
Maybe I watched those words very closely. but I'm gonna take the Chiefs to win 17-10.
Yeah.
I don't have much to say about the Raiders besides for Pete Carroll might get fired.
Well, I got a question for you. I mean, yeah, going off of that for the Raiders. I mean, Pete Carroll, yeah, he's on the hot seat. What do you make of this whole Tom Brady thing? Because there were reports coming out that they basically brought him in to kind of help get some structure and routine going. He recommended bringing Pete Carroll, and he helped get Pete Carroll in the office. Now Pete Carroll is on the hot seat. Where do you see the relationship with Tom Brady and the Raiders going? Do you think it's going to be something that actually produces something, or you think it's just going to be kind of a failure like Michael Jordan and the Wizards, or
The
Michael Jordan
Hornets.
and the Hornets? Sorry, yeah,
Um, I think if Tom Brady wants to stay in his broadcast position, I think things will at least stay somewhat positive. And if they go bad, it's going to be behind the scenes, and Tom Brady's going to keep a straight face, give the PR trained answers that,
hmm
he's basically had to do his whole career.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I don't know. If anything, I'd be more curious about who replaces Pete Carroll because a name in college football who people want to see come to the NFL is Marcus Freeman, the Notre Dame head coach. Now, do I think that he's going to go to the Raiders? No. But I think if they get the right guy for the job, I don't think Tom Brady's going to be mad. I think he's just going to want to see competitive football at least
yeah,
next year. I
yeah,
think that has to be like number one as Tom Brady stands because he's a minority owner.
yeah,
So I think that has to be like goal number one because the Raiders, they're at least one full season away from basically being able to compete for, let's just say, the playoffs. Like
yeah. At least one.
like they
Yeah,
they need that first. So
yeah.
I don't have much to say about them other than that. That was a great question, by the way. Let's move on to the Chargers versus the Broncos. This game is an important game because the Broncos, their offense has been very inconsistent this year. And, the Broncos are trying to get the number one seed while the Chargers, they're still trying to keep pace.
Yeah.
I think the Chargers, actually, I'm going to change my mind. I think the Broncos are going to get this one.
Mm,
The Chargers, they've been kind of beating the Broncos, a lot the past couple of seasons, but I think the Broncos are finally gonna be like, we've had enough because we can beat this team.
yeah.
We just, need to play, faster, quicker. I don't think they're gonna, go out the gates, drive down 80 yards down the field,
Yeah.
but I think they're gonna put together, a good game in all three phases and get this win.
Yeah, honestly, I think this might be the hardest game to pick for me at least, just because I don't necessarily have a good pulse on either of these two teams as far as like I don't have a good sense as to what mark they're going to make in the playoffs. Both obviously great teams for sure, not question there. I just think it's going to be a question of who can put it together for four quarters. Um, I'm gonna slay the Chargers. I'm hesitant to say the Chargers just because of how good the Broncos defense is and the lack of star pieces the Chargers offense has in addition to their alignment troubles. I think it's a very bad formula for the Chargers. If I had to put my money on it, I would bet the Broncos win this game. Although I just have a feeling Justin Herbert's been hot. He's been balling out. I think it'll be a close. I think they come in to Mile High Stadium and they find a way to play a dirty game and get it done. It'll be close though. I'm gonna take the Chargers 23-20. I'll give that one a score. I think that one's gonna be close.
We have a similar score prediction. Before I changed my mind, I kept the score prediction the same. I think the Broncos are going to win this one 24-20. So we're very similar in that
Yeah,
regard. So we've got two games left. We have the Jets versus the Bills. I'm going to pose this question more so because I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think they're going to
yeah,
win by at least two scores.
yep,
But this, I think, is Josh Allen's best chance at getting a ring. No Mahomes, no Joe Burrow, potentially no Lamar Jackson. I think if the Bills do not win the Super Bowl, I think I think people gotta chill at least a little bit on the Josh Allen conversation. Just a little bit. Because like I get it. The AFC, a lot of great defenses are basically gonna be in the playoffs this year. Even though that, they don't have that playoff experience as teams. so to speak.
Yeah.
But Josh Allen should outduel almost every quarterback in the AFC. The only exception I will say is potentially the Lamar Jackson. But the thing about that is Lamar Jackson, he has not, he has, he's put together more okay games than like, I'm gonna go out and dice you up for 300 yards.
Yeah.
And I get it, he's been hurt this year. But do you think that this is Josh Allen's best chance at getting a Super Bowl ring?
I don't think it is. I know that sounds crazy to say. I don't think it is. And the reason why I say that, um, Bengals are still MIA. I think even going into next year, the Bengals, I mean, they're what are you going to do with that defense? You have Joe Burrow questions now. The Bengals are out of it, so he's not a threat. Pat Mahomes, we just talked about out next season. So we don't for the majority of next season, let's say at least. So that's not a threat. And obviously Lamar and the Ravens are always they're gonna be in the mix in some way, shape, or form. So you can't really knock him out of that conversation. But I don't think so because we were just got done talking about Drake May by being MVP. So I can't sit here and say that Josh Allen's going to outduel Drake May uh, uh, like that if it comes to that. Um, I think this is an unfortunate season for the Bills in the sense of in the last few seasons they've had offenses that are way better. They've had defenses that are way better. They have no really offensive weapons on the offensive side other than Josh Allen. So it's literally Josh Allen. You have to go out there and play perfect, no turnovers, score 4 times to win us the game because our defense isn't going to do it. The Bills' defense is nowhere to be seen. In other years, the Bills' defense has at least been a threat or decent enough to challenge. This year, you don't see that. And this year, the Bills don't have any offensive weapons. So I think that this is just really a setup. I think it's a lose-lose situation for Josh Allen because, like I said, they've had offenses in the past that are way better than they have now, whether it be with Stephon Diggs or whether it be Amari Cooper or whoever. They had Gabe Davis as a threat. They had pieces. I think this year it's just not shaping up to be that way for them. Um, I don't see them coming out of it this year. I don't, uh, just because of that. Is it a really good opportunity for them? I think it would be. I think if they were to have some offensive pieces and a defensive piece, yes. But I can't say this year is their chance.
But I'm gonna argue against you here a little bit because even if they don't make it this year, next year, like you just said, so like this is the prime time to get a Super Bowl if you're Josh Allen.
Next 2 years, you got to capitalize.
Like, and I will argue the same thing for Lamar Jackson.
I agree.
This is the prime time to do it.
Yeah,
If they don't get one, like
they
either
will.
this year or next year, I don't think they're gonna do it.
I think one of them will end up being that Drew Brees status as like you got your one when it wasn't either Peyton's or Tom Brady's year. You got your one, you just snatch it and you just keep it moving. Obviously, you're a great quarterback, you're a Hall of Fame worthy quarterback, but I don't see any of these two. I don't see either Josh Allen or Lamar going on this huge, crazy Super Bowl run, um, like Pat Mahomes or Tom Brady-esque. Would I love to see Lamar go out and win 3 Super Bowls? Kind of not because I'm a Steelers fan, but at the same time, I would love for Lamar to achieve that himself. Um, but yeah, I think yeah, between these next 2 seasons, it's going to be on one of them to get it done for sure in the playoffs.
What you all have been waiting for. We've got me, the Ravens fan, going up against my brothers, Pittsburgh Steelers. Can you kick it off? What are your thoughts about this game?
Man, I'm sick about this game. I'm sick. No, I'm for real. I got a problem. I got a problem with the NFL script writers. I got a problem. I got a problem for real. I'm gonna need to talk to Roger Goodell. I'm gonna need to talk to everybody on the NFLPA. I got a real problem with this, man. I got a real problem. You know I've been rooting pretty practically against the Steelers all season, for one.
You
I've been rooting
have.
against the Steelers all season,
You
okay?
have.
I got excited for a little bit. I got excited for a little bit. Like 2 weeks, I got excited. You want to
Was
know
it
why? I
earlier
was
in the
like,
year when the Ravens were 1-5?
I was like, the Ravens are, I was like, you know what it is? It wasn't even that. It wasn't even that. You know what it was? The Steelers were like 8-6. I was looking at the season. I was looking at the landscape. I was seeing, well, everybody's questionable this year. Everybody's questionable this year. So tell me why inconsistent Steelers team that has shown to be good on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive ball during certain games can't go in and beat a team on a given Sunday this season in the playoffs. Tell me why they couldn't do that. Please tell me why they wouldn't be able to. You tell me we already beat the Patriots this year. You tell me we can't beat the Patriots again by a field goal. You tell me we can't go into we can't go to the Broncos and we can't beat them by 3 points because they struggle on offense. You telling me
You beat,
that?
you beat the Ravens.
That's something we beat the Ravens already. Please give me an idea of who we can't. There was only one team. There was one team where I was like, we can't beat them, and that's the Bills. We can't beat the Bills. We cannot beat the Bills. So it was going to be have to get around them team. Now we look at the real situation. DK Metcalf suspended for 2 games.
You
We got
preaching like you
Darnell
Deion Sanders right
Washington.
now.
We got Darnell Washington, who's supposed to be our left tackle. This man playing tight end broke his forearm, so now he's out. We have why did let me ask you a question. Why did we trade for Jaren Smith beginning of the season? Why did we trade for him? If we got Pratt Fryermuth, who's a top tight end, we got a left tackle who's 6'8", 350 pounds playing tight end, and Darnell Washington, and he's goaded. Why did we trade for Jonnu Smith? Because he doesn't get any targets. Pat Fryermuth don't get any targets. We
They
have
use John
no
Smith to run the football.
That's what I'm saying. Because we had no way to get him involved in the game plan, so we had no choice but to be like, you know what, go line up at running back and run the ball because we just have no other options. But I'm telling you, this game is a complete dud. Steelers are losing. We
Did it hurt more seeing last week the Steelers? Aaron Rodgers did have Kenneth Gainwell wide open for a touchdown.
wide open. I was actually looking at some highlight films of him. What makes us decide to line up 3 times in a row at the end of the game and throw it to Denzel Ward 3 times in a row?
My thing is, if that was DK Metcalf, I wouldn't have been as mad at it. Don't get me
Look,
wrong, I don't think that's, good football regardless.
I
But
I have a strong belief after this season that Aaron Rodgers is just really, really stuck on throwing a fade ball. That's all he does. Because there were plenty of opportunities last week that I saw him. We set up a pick play en route, and on the other side, he's just looking back one on one, backside
he,
corner.
he threw like a good 4 or 5 back shoulders or like fades to people you should not be throwing that
The
route
one
to.
he threw to Adam Thielen on the left side that was incomplete for the first down.
Yeah.
We had a whole rub route going on the other side of the play that he just completely wrote off. He ended up with being wide open. There were like 3 or 4 of those plays where the play Arthur Smith had called ended up being wide open, and Aaron just ends up going with the fade ball or going with whatever he wants. And it's just like I need a quarterback that's going to play in our system. Um, I wasn't high on Aaron Rodgers before the season. Obviously, and future Hall of Famer, no doubt, all those type of things, 4-time MVP, only been one play, all those type of things. Give him all its accolades. But this is an absolute failure for me because this is honestly worst case scenario. This is worst case scenario because I thought we were going to have the division clinched by now. I thought we were going to be going into the playoffs with some opportunity to be beating up on some of these new playoff teams, inconsistent teams, all these types of things. And I've been rooting for the Steelers to lose these games so we can get a better draft pick, so we can get a better draft class, all for us to end up a little bit above 500 and not even making the playoffs
I,
potentially.
I
So
I understand the frustration. I do.
So
And
yeah, I think that this is a crapshoot game. I think that the Ravens will come out with the win, whether or not Lamar plays. I think that they'll come out with the
it's
win.
been announced that he's playing.
I know it is, but I think regardless of if he goes out there and knock on every wood that you possibly can, slips up and or tweaks anything in the game and he ends up not playing the whole game, I think the Ravens win regardless. I think the Ravens would win even if they don't play Lamar and they rest him. I mean, we saw what it was last week against the Browns when we have no receiver to throw the ball to. Now we don't have Darnell either. Yeah, it's just going to be ugly for us. It's going to be ugly for us. I don't see us being able to get anything done on the offensive side of the ball. Defense might be able to keep us in the game, but I just don't see how we're going to put up any points in order to be able to say, even if we do beat the Ravens, that we feel good going into the playoffs. I don't see it.
Fair. Well, first, if the Ravens do end up winning this game, I'd have to eat my own words because when they were 1-5, there are all these people still picking the Ravens to, win the division, to pick teams to pick them to go win 11 straight. And I'm not gonna lie, for a little bit, I'm like, maybe they can go on a crazy win streak. Then Thanksgiving against the Bengals happened. Then they lost the following week to the Steelers. I'm like, nah, you still got the Patriots on your schedule, which I get. I wasn't a full believer of them, but I'm like, I got to give respect to the Patriots because with Mike Vrabel, they're going to be a well-coached
Coached
team.
team.
That much I knew.
Hmm.
You got to go into Lambeau, which I did not think the Ravens in the Packers game was going to end up that way. I thought it was going to be like a 27-24 game. Um, that blew my, expectations out the water. So, long story short, this game is being considered by social media the, winner keeps their job, loser gets fired bowl. And my thing is, do I think the Ravens can because it's likely that they'll have to play the Texans or the Chargers. Now, if I'm the Ravens, and again, if the Ravens win this game, I would rather play the Chargers, but it makes a bigger statement to, beat the Texans personally. But for the Ravens, I saw, on Twitter that basically Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, he was basically like why the Ravens were so run heavy last week. Like basically, he was like, "Nah, Derrick Henry, get your butt back in the game." And Derrick Henry had 36 carries, 212 yards, and 4 touchdowns. I believe the carries and the touchdowns tied his career high. Either they tied his career high or they set it. It was one or the other.
He had four
But
touchdowns.
he had 4 touchdowns against the Packers last weekend.
Mm,
4.
mm.
So I think if the Ravens want to win this game, it's going to be on their offense. Derrick Henry has to do Derrick Henry like things. I'm not saying he's got to put up for 200 yards,
Yeah.
but I think most importantly, the Ravens have to win the fourth quarter. Now you're probably saying, Jaren, that's a given for any football game. But the last 5 years, all them blown Ravens leads. The Steelers are on that list for some of them blown leads, and I get it. Some of those Steelers games still stretch basically about a decade, some of them. But
Hmm.
still, you've got a decade list of blown leads under John Harbaugh. I would say if the Ravens lose this game because of a blown lead, do not let John Harbaugh back on the plane.
Do
Do
not let him back
not
in the
do it.
office. Don't let him back in the building.
Do not. Like there's the video of Jamal Adams when he was on the Jets where he was trying to swipe it to get in the building. He couldn't get in the building. Do
Everything.
not let him back. Get
Hey,
a new head coach because you've got the pieces to be a Super Bowl winning team. The
yeah,
Ravens have basically been Super Bowl favorites for the past 5 years,
yeah,
give or take, at some point.
yeah,
And they've had disappointing ends to their seasons. And in regards to this, don't get me wrong. I think everything is playing to the Ravens' favor right now. And so as like I don't see as to why they should not win this game against the Steelers. I do have the Ravens winning this game 24-17. But here's my thing. If this game is close, like long story short, if the Steelers have to drive down the field goal to win it, touchdown to win, I think that the Ravens have to win by 2 scores for them to win this game. If it's within a score, Steelers got a chance to drive down the field. Yeah, then Ravens, they got it.
yeah,
But I'm going to take the Ravens to win, and they're gonna. I think they can make the playoffs. But I do think whoever wins this game between the Ravens and Steelers, both teams have the chance to, get some upsets against these lesser experienced playoff teams.
yeah,
Because nobody's gonna want to tackle Derrick Henry in January. Nobody.
yeah,
I think there's only one. No, there's two AFC teams who may be built to, slow down Derrick Henry. No order for these teams. The Texans and the Broncos. If the Ravens match up against the Patriots again, I think the Ravens like they're gonna give Derrick Henry the ball back.
yeah,
Like they're gonna give him the ball. But I think out of the other AFC teams, I don't think there's a single AFC team that at least can stop the run consistently. And if they do, it's because the Ravens abandoned it. So long story short, I got the Ravens 24-17. If the Ravens abandon the run, game's over. Steelers win.
yeah. I think I think going into this, everybody's got pressure on the hot seat for both of these coaches. Regardless of who wins and who loses. I don't see Mike Tomlin losing his job, regardless of win or loss, regardless of the outcome of
That
this.
that like 22-year streak of being above 500.
Yeah, it's just tough to overcome. It's tough to, be like, why are we firing this guy in that regard? Because, what have our rosters really been? John Harbaugh on the other side, I do think that there's a little bit more credence to firing him if
I
they
agree.
sleep on this game. Do I think that he's deserving of should I say, do I think he's deserving of a head coaching position in this league? I do. I do for sure. That's without a question. I think if the Ravens do decide to part ways from him, he's probably got another job in the next day, to be honest with you. He's getting
New
calls.
York. I
So
think he'd go to New York.
yeah, he could pretty much go at anywhere he wants, that is looking for a head coach. Um, do I think that the Ravens want to see head coaching position? I think there's been a little bit of turmoil, a little bit in the locker room for the Ravens as far as head coaching changes. I think that's the difference between the Steelers and the Ravens, though. I think everybody in the Steelers locker room is behind Mike Tomlin. I just think that it's just the roster has been the problem with the Steelers, like specifically the quarterback and the offensive side of the ball for the main part. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see, man. It'll be interesting to see because I've been wanting change too, for the Steelers, so it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening after the fact with everything.
I agree. I could not agree anymore. But that's all, have for, the I Am Passionate podcast. It's been a
Yeah.
great NFL season. Oh,
One more
okay.
thing,
You got one
just
closing thought.
well, one more thing to circle back to the coach of the year. I just want to point out. Just want to point out. So we already said Mike Vrabel for coach of the year. You obviously have Ben Johnson for coach of the year.
Jacksonville's Liam
You
Cohen.
got
He's got to be
Liam
one.
Cohen for coach of the year. Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, he should. If
People are saying
he
Kyle
should get it.
Shanahan
He should be in the conversation.
because at that point you have the top players on your depth chart are hurt, are
Just give
not
them
just
all the
hurt,
award.
out for the season. Yeah. I would say Jim Harbaugh, bro. He's dealt with injuries. They're 11-5. I mean, I'm not saying that he's going to get it by chance, but I think there's an argument for him. Um,
That's five coaches.
yeah, I think those are the main five right there that would be coach of the year. I do not think though that we can ignore uh what's going on with the Broncos either in Sean Payton because think about it in the sense of last year and the year before last, it was Russell Wilson gate. Russell Wilson was robbing them. They're still under that Russell Wilson contract right now. So even with that, you're saying that they're now sitting at top of the conference. I think you could say Sean Payton as well because there's questions around Bo Nix. Obviously, they have a great defense, but you could also argue that Sean Payton could also be in line for Coach of the Year. Um, but ultimately, if you had to pick one of those coaches, who do you think it's going to end up going to?
If I had to pick one, in all honesty, this is gonna shock you. I'm picking Jacksonville's head coach
Mm,
because I can't remember the exact like stat, but basically,
oh,
I,
I'm sorry, but I didn't mean to cut you off. Also, Seattle's head coach too. Seattle's head coach.
he could definitely be in the
Yeah,
equation, but
but
I'm
continue.
still handing it to Jacksonville because I believe basically what he's done in this short of time, it has not been done. He's the first person to do it. Like I think they had like 4 wins last year, and now they have, I believe the Jags have 12. I believe they're 12 and 4. Have the chance to go 13 and 4. It has not been done.
Yeah,
Like what he is doing.
yeah,
And so I think every coach that you named is deserving. I would put Jim Harbaugh as the least deserving, not because he hasn't been a good head coach, but just because what other teams have been doing that you named, I think are more deserving.
yeah,
I think if I had to rank, say top three, Jaguars head coach, 49ers head coach, and the Bears head coach.
yeah,
I think if any one of those three were to win the award, I would not complain.
yeah,
But to be honest, you could literally give the first five that you mentioned the award, like that you get an award, you get an award, you all get them. You can give them to all five. I think they're very deserving of it. So, but if I had to pick, if I was the deciding vote, I would give it to Liam Cohen.
yeah. I would give it to Ben Johnson, but that's just because I'm biased. I can't, obviously can't ignore anything you said. I can't ignore any of the coaches I've named. But Ben Johnson seeing up close and personal, the culture shift,
For sure.
the culture shift that has occurred for Chicago, at least what we're expecting to see going forward. Um, you can't make more of an impact than changing the entire culture of a franchise
I agree.
in less than one season, to be honest with you. So just with how up and up the Bears look, I think everybody is pretty confident that the Bears will be contenders for years to come with Ben Johnson and Caleb as the duo. So I just think with how bleak it was last year with Caleb Williams thinking he's a bust, is he not? All these kind of things to coming in this year, nobody expecting them to even be really top two in the division with the Packers and with the Lions there, and then obviously the Vikings being in the mix as well, being removed from their awesome season last year. I just think that it's amazing that the Bears are sitting where they're sitting right now. I don't think anybody saw it coming. So,
That is true. I
but
I agree with that.
any of these coaches are deserving of it. So, best of luck to them and the MVP voters and MVP getters and everything like that.
I agree. And I think that is, a great way to close off, the 18th episode of this season's I Am Passionate podcast. It's your host, Jaren Smith, and best believe you will see us during playoff time.
Yes, you will.